Welcome to Faith Positive Radio with Dr. Joey Fawcett, the Christian business coaching conversation that increases your faith with greater joy at work so you love God and others more. Dr. Joey interviews Christian business professionals just like you to discover their secrets for working faith positive in a negative world. Welcome to Faith Positive Radio with Dr. Joey Fawcett.
Hey, Faith Positive Nation, Dr. Joey Fawcett here with another great episode of Faith Positive Radio. Yep. How much time do you get to spend with your family? Now, some of you, because of the pandemic, might be saying, way too much, right? Quarantined with people that you're used to being away from all day, and absence makes the heart grow fonder, so you are enjoying being away from them all day. But however, what about the intentional time that you get to be with your family, the discretionary time that your work buys you in order to do what you love with those you love? How much of that kind of time do you get to spend? Because even if you're working from home, you can work from home. In fact, sometimes it's easier to go to the computer and log on and do work, right? But how much time are you literally buying yourself to be with family and friends and do the things about which you're passionate, the things that fulfill your purpose that the good Lord has put into you? Today's guest is going to help us discover how we can intentionally live, establish a financial plan that supports a high level of intentionality in our living. And as one who has 3 boys himself under the age of 3, he knows all about it, not only in theory, but in practice as well. So Faith Positive Nation, help me welcome, from his website is intentionallivingfp.com. Help me welcome Jim Crider. Jim, welcome to Faith Positive Radio.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Man, yeah. So 3 boys. Let's talk about those right up front. What are their names?
Yeah. So we have Atticus. Atticus is our oldest. He's 3. And then we have Asher. Asher is 1. And then we have a newborn, Arlo. And Arlo is a month old.
Wow. So I'm picking up on an A theme there. Tell me your wife's name starts with A, right?
No, it doesn't. We settled. We had an A name for a boy, and then we had one in the back pocket for a girl. So we kept having boys. We were afraid that we were going to have a girl later on, so we had to stick with the A's as long as they kept coming. We felt committed. So
you still got that A girl name in your back pocket.
Yep, just in case.
I hear you. So, man, it's been incredibly difficult, as I was mentioned a moment ago, for some of us to get away from work, since so many of us are working from home now, to get away from work with a high level of intentionality to go and do things with our family. Now, this is not a pandemic-induced challenge for us. It's one that's existed for some time, really ever since we started commuting, right? And walking off the farm to go work the public job. We found ourselves torn between the lifestyle that we set up for ourselves financially, and then those obligations that come from that, and then those desires of our heart, as David talks about them in that psalm, right? The people we want to spend time with, whom we love, the activities that we want to be a part of. How did you, Jim Crider, find yourself called by God to help people with intentional living financial plans?
It's been I started off with a vision. So when I got into financial planning, frankly, I didn't know really what financial planning was. I just knew that I wanted to help families have healthy conversations about their money, and then actually align their money with what is truly important to them in their life. Money is it's the number one cause of divorce in the U.S. And if I could help families at least navigate those conversations, be on the same page, and do what's important in their lives, using their money as a tool to help them do that, I feel like that'd be just a phenomenal way to spend my career.
Sweet. So what you wanted to do was lower the divorce rate and help people remove a barrier to their relationship. So I guess the scripture is right when it says you can't serve God and the bank, as Dr. Peterson translates that, or God and mammon, right? So whom are you going to serve? So as you got more and more into financial planning, how did it move into this area of intentional living, as you call it?
Well, it started again with that initial thesis, have healthy conversations. And then the first step, of course, you want to make sure a doctor you go to, any professional you go to, knows the nuts and bolts, the technical side of what they're doing. So I spent years learning the technical, having tens of thousands of conversations at this point. But over time, I came to recognize that, frankly, it's not about mutual funds and savings rates. It's about understanding that your money is simply a tool and a resource that is there to help you do and live the life that you want to live. And everything in life requires a decision. There's always trade-offs. There's always opportunity cost. But very few people actually think through what is important to me, then how are my actions aligning with that? And are they? And I have had tens and tens of thousands of conversations with people. And I found that very few people actually stop and think through, how does what I'm doing today actually affect what will happen to me down the line, be it tomorrow or in a decade or for my legacy. So I wanted to have people and help my clients start with what is foundationally important to our family. What are the values that we hold, the underlying why in what we do? That is the anchor in the conversation we have. And from there, we establish goals. So I'm sure, Dr. Joey, that your goals today are probably different than they were a decade ago, and they'll probably be different in a decade from now. That happens. And that's
There's
fine.
Seasons of life, right?
Exactly. And it's okay if goals change. Goals are meant to just simply inform the next best step that we take. Okay. We have values, then we have goals, then we have decisions. As I mentioned, everything requires a decision. Then finally, there's actions. So we want to make sure they're anchored in those values, and that should influence and motivate each step we take from there. The goals that we set, the actions we take, decisions we make on an ongoing basis.
So really, you're talking about an alignment of those 4 areas within our lives, and thereby our financial plan simply reflects those value-driven 4 areas. It seems like so many of us have undeclared values. I may hold something valuable. I may hold it to be true, but I might not express that to my spouse or to our children very well. How integral is your process in helping families towards articulating those values and declaring those so that all the players know?
That is foundational. That is step one. If we don't understand why you're actually shooting for what you're aiming for, then we're really apt to miss the goal itself. So we establish that up front, and then we revisit that on an ongoing basis. So all of my clients, when we go through and we create a financial plan, we establish their statement of financial purpose. That is the thesis and the theme of why we're planning on an ongoing basis. We can continually reference. If it's later on, maybe years from now, we decide, hey, we want to go and purchase this new vacation house, or we want to, whatever it is financially, we can check that against their statement of financial purpose and make sure that we're staying consistent with those values. But that is what we establish up front and then regularly revisit. And you're exactly right. A lot of people don't articulate these things nor communicate it. And I've had that happen countless times in conversations with families. I don't know how many times I'm not a counselor, but I feel like one sometimes because
I bet you do.
I've had countless conversations where the spouses are on the verge of a divorce, and it goes back to a misunderstanding that they actually had the same intention behind what they were doing, but were approaching it from different ways. So their goals look different, but their underlying value is the same. So maybe one spouse is working a whole bunch because they want to make sure their family is financially secure. And the other spouse is upset because their husband is working so much and they wish they were there to be with the family more. They both want security for the family, but they are approaching in different ways. So bringing that out and letting them both recognize, hey, we want the same thing. We want to make sure our family's taken care of and loved and able to grow and pursue what's important to us. That right there can alleviate so much stress because finally the family is in alignment. And then what we do moving forward is able to be aligned with what's important to them.
And that's why you call it intentional living, because now we have a common playing field. We understand where we're going, what we're going to do. So the financial piece just simply aligns with the values, the decisions, the actions, right?
That's exactly right.
And the other things that you're doing there. So talk about the importance, Jim Crider, of godly values and how you've seen examples of godly values best being reflected in families and helping create intentional living for a family?
Oh gosh. It's integral in any way, as you experience. I mean, even someone who's not a Christian, there's the wisdom of the Lord is threaded throughout any way of living. And whether you recognize it as a Christian or not, it still holds truth that there are, like you said, not serving two masters. You have to choose your master and serve that one. So people who are conflicted, well, that can be very concerning to a relationship, whether or not you recognize it. I don't only work with Christians.
Okay.
Now that audience we're drawn together. It makes sense.
Right. There's a natural attraction there, but you work with pre-believers as well.
Exactly. And that's a huge part of the relationship I have. I'm not there to preach the gospel directly. My goal in my job is to serve and help someone use their money for what's important to them, but also helping understand why is something important in their life. And as those themes come out, it always goes back to the Lord. Hey, why you think that this is important to you? Well, why do you want this? And then you start pulling on that thread. Well, I feel insecure. Well, why do you feel insecure? I don't know who I am. Well, how do you establish your identity and who you are? Well, I don't know. Well, I have a great answer for you. I found the book Love Does by Bob Goff.
Oh yeah, what a great book.
I have given it out to tons of clients. It's not a in-your-face, direct Bible study, but I think it's a great way of exposing people to the Lord and His goodness.
Bob is such a great guy. I mean, he incarnates the gospel at its best, right? Yeah, and he lives a life that is so purposeful and intentional, and I feel like that's a great segue in how I serve my clients, is helping them understand what they want to do, but also, ultimately you will not find satisfaction and true joy without the Lord. How do you, Jim Crider, incarnate that truth for them, that you find your truest joy in life in your relationship with Jesus Christ? How do you evidence that to your clients?
Man, well, one is just through serving. And again, there's a balance in my job. People don't come to me for counseling or financial or spiritual guidance. But I do personally hold myself to a level of accountability, and I have surrounded myself with community to asking those hard questions. How is your business relationship with clients reflecting the Lord and His love? So anytime I work with a client and I approach them, my clients are not a dollar. My job is to serve them, and their money is there to help with that. And I want to get to know them well and understand what is important to them, and actually help them have healthy relationships with their families, and ultimately through good conversations and peeling those layers back of what's important to you, what is your identity, what are you driving towards, what is the legacy you want. It's inevitable if you have enough conversations that you seek the truth, and the truth will be discovered if you are truly seeking. And my job is to be a guide. And ultimately, if I am guiding them well, I think eventually those conversations will be had inevitably. So
you're talking about all the good stuff of life, the things that people really want, right? Because money buys us time to be able to do those things, right? Discretionary time. So what is important to you? How do you spend your time? Things like that. Where do these decisions come from? Your identity, right? Man, those are crucial questions. And then your money planning falls into place behind that. So
that's exactly right.
You said you serve several times now. Who, Jim Crider, was an important mentor for you in learning how to serve others the way you do?
Gosh. That's a great question. I mean, countless people through the years. So I grew up in the church and youth group, so youth leaders and pastors. And then when I was in went to college, and I really discovered the Lord, and life changed before I was really exposed to the Lord and His, in who He really is. and chose to actually seek him rather than be a Christian by culture. Once I chose to pursue the Lord and find out who he is on his own, rather than, I'm from Texas in the South. Everyone in the South is a Christian. I decided I wanted to separate.
Is that a birthright? Right. You're born in Texas, therefore here's your birth certificate along with a Christ card. Yeah.
Exactly.
I know it seems that way, but what you're saying is really you had to discover faith for yourself. You had to learn to own your faith as opposed to inheriting a faith or receiving it as a citizen of the great country of Texas, right?
Yeah. And fortunately I had so many mentors, and I mean, my brother, he took that step just a year before I did. He went to college 1 year before me. He came home for spring break, and I noticed that, man, Scott is just different.
Really? You could see the difference, huh?
His countenance is different. What he's talking about, his passions, his joys, the relationships he has, they all seem different. My short story made long. My parents made me go to school when my brother went for my freshman year. And I got there and I decided
They said, son, if you're going to college, you're going where Scott went.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, if Scott changed that much, I will spend this first year understanding who God is. Wow. And I don't care what the culture has to say or what others have to say. I want to pursue him and find out who he is in full. Then after that, I can go and do the normal college thing. But massive influence was my brother in the reflection that he was in the transformation that God had in his life.
Wow. What a great story. And your parents made you, but it turned out to be the worst decision they ever made you follow, right?
Oh, yeah. Met my wife at that school I had to go
to.
Did
you? Okay, now you got to give a shout out to the school. What's the school?
It's Dallas Baptist University.
There you go. Okay. DBU, right?
Sure.
Shout out to Dallas Baptist University. Great job, guys. Scott and Jim Crider both benefited from that. Did Scott meet his wife at Dallas as well?
No, they didn't meet for a few years later.
Oh, okay. So he just needed to be ripened a little bit more before he was ready, right?
But he was introduced through a third party that he did meet at DBU. So still the match made at DBU. So.
Oh, that's great. That is great. And you also mentioned that you are in a community. It almost sounded like what I refer to as a PBA, a personal board of advisors that helps hold you accountable. Tell us how you set that up and how that works for you, Jim.
Yeah, so I have a group of guys that I met at school that we still stay in close relationship. And of course, we just goof off and talk about funny things. But the foundation of our relationship is the Lord. We all met in this pursuit of finding out who God is when we were at school and young and wandering around. So the foundation of our relationship is we all came together trying to figure out who God is and wanting to learn about him. So we always reference that back in our relationship. So we've gone separate ways. Some of those friends work directly in ministry. Some are school teachers. Some are business owners. And we talk about work, but ultimately, what is the Lord doing in your life specifically? And then how is the Lord using you in the work you're doing, be it in ministry,
Gotcha.
Ministry, or through school or your business.
Right. How often do you guys get together?
Well, we have a group text that goes all the time, but we're spread across the U.S. now, so we try to get together. I'd say once a year. We actually recently started the first Monday of the month. We all do a FaceTime meeting and talk and pray for each other. Which is, I mean, we all have lots of kids now, so it's hard, but you have to make time for it.
Sure.
If something's important to you, you will make time. So.
Every time. Yeah, you make it a priority. It's a little easier to FaceTime than to travel, though, right? That way you can assist your wife with 3 boys under 3 years old. Talk about a daily hill to climb. Wow, that's crazy. Jim, what, obviously you do your work a little different than the typical financial planner. What are some of the challenges that you discover in being an intentional living financial planner?
I'd say a lot of people, when they approach me, they have this preconception of what a financial planner does. They expect to sit down and we talk for 10 minutes and give them a mutual fund to invest in. I don't think that's the best thing to do. I think you'd be concerned if you went to a doctor and y'all talked for 5 or 10 minutes and they said, hey, here's this prescription, you'd probably be concerned. You would make sure that you are adequately understood and known before you're diagnosed.
Yes,
so that's a common hurdle is helping someone actually understand how I'm able to best help them is by actually understanding who they are and what's important to them. And then we can walk through assigning these financial tasks and priorities once we understand what's there. It serves your life. So if I'm going to give you something that serves your life, I have to know what your life is.
Well, for it to be relevant, right, or meaningful, or to bring anything like God into it. Well, it just sounds so countercultural, which is probably the reason you experience that challenge. Because, aren't most of us just used to grabbing the remote and turning on a cable channel and there's a guy screaming at us or either boring us to tears with financial data, all the lead up to buy this stock, or something like that. So it's a commodity. But what you're talking about is more of a holistic, whole life approach that cares about who you are, what your heart's desires are, what has God created you to do, how you want to best support your family. So that just takes time, doesn't it, Jim?
Yeah. My job is to help you live the life that you want to live. And your money is, again, just a tool and a resource that is there to help you do that. And it's about your life, not your money. And we have to continually remember that. It's easy to get pulled in the direction of serving the money itself. But we have to remind the money and your time that, hey, what is truly important to me? Why am I doing this? I've had conversation after conversation with people who have been financially successful and they've reached it. They're established, they're approaching retirement, they've accumulated a really healthy net worth. And so many times we've identified that, wow, we spent years climbing a ladder that was leaned against the wrong wall. You reached the top and you're successful financially, but it actually never did what you had intended it for. And that's why I established my firm specifically to work with young families who want to achieve early financial independence. And the reason I'm going after younger families is, one, it's who I can relate with. I understand the challenges and the desires that a lot of younger people have. But also, if I could help people make intentional decisions and live intentionally from early on, one, when you think of compounding, time is a major impact there.
Oh yeah.
And if we can catch that early on and help you live intentionally and purposely up front, then that will just go so much further than someone, hey, we meet in their 60s and I can help you from here, but I wish we could go back and retrace those steps that you did.
So applying wisdom early enough so that you achieve the kind of lifestyle that you want. Yeah, I remember when I first read that about Dr. Covey, Dr. Stephen Covey said, what if you climbed the ladder to the pinnacle of success and only to discover it's leaning against the wrong wall? That one will make you scratch your head and think, right? Because those actions that you're talking about do have consequences, and those are driven by our values. And so if our values are out of alignment with what God values, then we're going to wind up against the wrong wall, right?
That's exactly right.
Jim Crider is a financial planner. You can go to his website, intentionallivingfp.com. Tell us what we'll find when we get to your website, Jim.
Yeah. So when you go there, you can just learn about the company and the firm itself. But I would be happy on there. You can find a time on my calendar and just throw 15 minutes on there. I'd be glad to, if you have just a simple one-off question about a mutual fund, I'll be glad to try to answer that for you. Okay. Or if you want to chat and see if I could actually be a further help, if you're looking for a financial planning relationship, I'd be glad to have that conversation as well. So you can throw a time on my calendar, or just look around and see what financial planning is to me, and if that makes sense to you.
In preparation for that call, let's say I'm listening right now and I'm thinking, okay, what would I want to talk about on my call with Jim Crider? What's a question I could ask myself to sort of prep myself for an intentional living financial planning call with you, Jim?
That's a great question. So the people I serve are looking for someone to guide them, to help make financial decisions that align with what's important to them.
Okay.
And a lot of people think that to need a financial planner, you need a net worth of $1 million or be 60 years old or something.
Mm-hmm.
I would say to what you want to think about before that conversation is there a place in my life that having someone else there to help guide and hold us accountable to those conversations, those decisions that we know we're going to make as we progress through life. Is there someone that can help us as we navigate those complexities through managing our resources and helping achieve our goals?
Yeah, and even identify those goals, because as you were talking about values and goals and actions, and yeah, that's awesome. So maybe I could ask myself, what are some of my goals?
Yeah, that's
awesome question.
I'd say a lot of people start with goals themselves, which is great, but very few people continue to, again, peel those layers back, which can be dangerous. And that's how a lot of people assign goals, and they just start climbing that ladder really fast, but not understanding that the goal is there to actually serve the purpose as well. So a really, not to go on a tangent, but a really common story I hear is someone who's been financially successful and they've achieved their goal, but the purpose of the goal for financial success was be able to provide a good childhood for my children. I want to make sure that my kids felt safe and comfortable and had a better childhood than I had. Well, then we fast forward and it's 20 years, 30 years down the line. And yeah, they were really successful financially, but they don't even know their kids because they're so wrapped up in running their business and working a lot. Yeah. So they lost sight. They wanted financial success, which was the goal, but the value was a healthy environment for their kids. So don't stop at goals. Continue to ask yourself that one more question. Why do I want that? And when you just continue asking why, you get to the core of the value of what is truly important to you.
That's that value question of what's important to you. So maybe that's the best question I could ask myself before I go to intentionallivingfp.com and set up a time on Jim Crider's calendar. What's really important to me? And then that's a great launch pad for a conversation with you. Again, the website's intentionallivingfp.com. Jim Crider is the amazing intentional living financial planner that you'll get when you get on a calendar, and you've heard him share his heart today about how important God is in his business and how that wisdom and truth can be shared with you about what's important in your life through Jim's ministry. Jim, Faith Positive Nation always wants to know from our guest about a favorite Bible verse, Bible passage, Bible story. What's yours?
Gosh, let's say probably Romans 12. It says, "Therefore, I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God." I love that. It starts off with, "Therefore, I urge you, in view of God's mercy." So recognizing that God is good and he's merciful, you'll be drawn to offer yourself as a living sacrifice to God.
Why is that important to you, Jim Crider, to be a living sacrifice?
One, it's commanded, and two, I would say it's a natural reaction of understanding how good God is. And that's why Paul reminds you, in view of God's mercy. So look back to the mercy, look at it, view the mercy of God. In view of that mercy, now come and offer your body as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing God, because that's your spiritual act of worship.
So that's that faith response to mercy, huh?
Exactly.
I love it. Jim Crider is my guest today on Faith Positive Radio. intentionallivingfp.com's the website. Go there right now. Get on Jim's calendar, and let's align your financial planning with what's ultimately important to you and to your family. Jim, thanks so much for the gift of this time with you today. I pray God's blessings on you, your wife, and those 3 amazing boys, all under 3. You guys have fun with the monster trucks and dinosaurs today, okay?
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Joey.
All right. God bless you.
Thanks for listening to Faith Positive Radio, the Christian business coaching conversation that increases your faith with greater joy at work so you love God and others more. Suggest guests and ask questions when you email Dr. Joey at info@getpositive.today. And be sure to get your free gift of the 5 positive business conversations to have today coaching program at getpositive.today. Until next time, may God bless you with everything your heart can hope for and more than your mind can imagine.